She turned down $1 million. He disguised himself as a drifter to trick her, but in the end, he was the one who got fooled, and for the first time in his life, a millionaire lost something money could never buy. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. Now, take a deep breath, and let's step into this incredible journey together. The wind from the ocean swept past the glass towers of the Blue Horizon Resort. Behind a polished walnut desk, Nathan Montgomery stood still, his eyes locked on a patch of stubborn land just beyond the edge of his luxury empire. A stretch of dry, unyielding soil. The final piece in a multi-million-dollar expansion project, and the only one refusing to fall into place. Nathan wasn't used to hearing no. But that girl, Emily Parker, had said it. Plain, unshaken, unbought. She hadn't even blinked when they offered her more money than most people would see in a lifetime. All she said was, "This land isn't for sale. Not now. Not ever." It was infuriating. And strangely, intriguing. Emily Parker lived on that dusty patch of earth with her younger sister Sophie, a quiet, fragile child with eyes too wise for her age and a heart condition that kept her tethered to routine, rest, and the comfort of home. To Emily, this wasn't just property. It was memory, legacy, and the only safe place left for Sophie to call home. Nathan snapped the folder shut, jaw tight, eyes sharp. If money couldn't move her, if power couldn't sway her, then he'd use something far more persuasive. Trust. 2 days later, a dusty silver pickup rolled slowly along the winding dirt road toward the Parker farm. Behind the wheel sat a man no one would recognize. Faded jeans, rolled-up denim shirt, work boots caked in dried mud. Nathan Montgomery, the man in tailored suits, used to boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, was gone. In his place stood Nathan Miller, a man with calloused hands and no last name worth remembering. He knocked gently on the weathered wooden door. Inside, Emily glanced through the window, guarded and still. Behind her, Sophie clutched a worn-out book, peeking nervously over her sister's shoulder. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced," the man said, voice low, a little rough. "Name's Nathan Miller, just passing through, looking for a quiet place to stay." The first lie slid off his tongue like it meant nothing, but as he stood there, staring at the porch steps, the cracked paint on the windowsill, the faint sound of bird song and rustling wind in the distance, he felt it. Something strange, something unexpected. This wasn't just a farm, and maybe, just maybe, he was the one who had something to lose. The last rays of the afternoon sun were fading over the edge of the dry corn rows. The wind carried the scent of earth and hay, weaving through the stillness of the old farm as the day prepared to rest. On the front porch, Emily Parker wiped down the wooden table with an old cloth, her movements steady, routine, like everything else in her life these past few years. Quiet, self-reliant, expecting nothing from anyone. Then, the sound of an engine shattered the calm. She looked up. A dusty silver pickup crawled slowly up the dirt road. She didn't recognize it. It wasn't from town, and it certainly wasn't invited. Emily narrowed her eyes. Her hand instinctively reached for Sophie's. The little girl sat cross-legged on the porch, thumbing through a picture book. Sophie looked up, not with fear, but with a quiet, innocent curiosity. The truck stopped just shy of the front gate. The door creaked open. A man stepped out, shirt sleeves rolled, jeans worn thin, posture careful, like someone who knew he wasn't exactly welcome. Emily didn't move. She stood tall, shoulders squared, her gaze locked onto the stranger who approached, slow and measured. "Sorry to trouble you, ma'am," the man said, voice low and rough but not unkind. "Name's Nathan Miller. Just passing through. Looking for a spot to rest a few nights. I can work, fences, wood, whatever you need. Simple words. But to Emily, they rang with alarm bells. A stranger, a man, alone, showing up unannounced. The weight of everything she'd carried alone suddenly felt heavier. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes met his, steady, guarded. The light of the fading sun glinted off the porch rail, casting long shadows between them. Nathan didn't move any closer. He kept his hands relaxed by his sides, holding a battered cap. Not reaching, not insisting. Just standing there, quietly waiting. Finally, Emily spoke. "We don't take in strangers." Her voice was cool, firm, final. But before the silence settled too long, Sophie's small voice piped up beside her. "Mama, what about the old cabin? We cleaned it last spring. It's nice." Emily froze. Just a child's suggestion. But it landed like a stone in still water. She looked down at Sophie. Frail, pale from illness, but eyes bright with trust. That light, that softness. It had been missing from Emily's world for far too long. Nathan remained silent, letting the moment pass between them without adding pressure. Emily looked at him again. This man, he looked tired, road-worn. Something about his face, earnest but not too open, made her wonder. There was something he was holding back. But not all secrets are dangerous. Some are just survival. She exhaled, slow and reluctant. "The cabin's out back. No power, no hot water. You'll have to manage on your own. You stay away from the house, and you eat outside." Nathan nodded right away. "That's more than I could ask for. Thank you." She unlatched the gate. Sophie lit up like morning light. The little girl beamed, clutching her book to her chest, and skipped toward the path leading to the rear of the property. Nathan followed behind at a respectful distance. The cabin sat beneath 2 old willows, tucked at the edge of the pasture. The windows were cloudy, the door swollen with age. But it stood solid, and for years it had served as a place to store old tools. And sometimes Emily's silence. "Bedding's in the chest, lamps on the shelf, water's out by the pump," Emily instructed briskly. "We're even, that's it." She turned to leave. Nathan paused, then quietly offered, "I'll make sure you don't regret this." She didn't reply, but she also didn't slam the door. Sophie lingered behind, narrating each part of the cabin like a proud host. "I used to nap here. The quilt's a little scratchy, but it's warm. There's a spider in the corner, but it's friendly." Nathan chuckled, a soft, surprised sound. Emily heard it as she stepped away. And something about it caught her off guard. It wasn't the laugh of a con man. It was the laugh of someone who hadn't felt welcome in a long, long time. Night crept in gently. From the porch, the cabin glowed with the soft light of an oil lamp. Nathan's shadow moved behind the curtain. Subtle, unobtrusive. Emily stood under the eaves, arms folded, listening to Sophie chattering inside as she set an extra plate for dinner. The morning came in gently. Mist on the grass, light filtering through old window panes. Nathan was already up. The rhythm of early chores had become familiar. He was rebuilding the fence, plank by plank, not for appearance, but because it needed doing. From the porch, Emily watched him. The way he measured, paused, then struck. She didn't say a word. But she noticed. Later, Sophie ran across the yard with a drawing clutched to her chest. "Nathan," she called, "I made this." It was a crayon sketch of him and her beneath a tree. The boots were too big. "Just like yours," she giggled. Nathan smiled, tucked the drawing into his pocket with care. Emily, watching from a distance, saw the gesture. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes lingered. They worked quietly through the day, fixing the coop roof, pulling weeds, passing tools without needing to ask. No flirting, no talking much. But a rhythm had formed. Shared space, shared effort. That afternoon, Emily brought lemonade to the porch rail. Nathan wiped his hands, took the glass. "You didn't have to fix all that," she said. "It needed fixing," he replied. She didn't answer, but she looked out toward the field. The fence stood straight. Sophie swung under the big oak, humming to herself. Nathan glanced her way. "She's strong." Emily's hand tightened slightly around her glass. "She had to be." He nodded. "I see her, and I see the one who raised her." Emily looked at him then. Really looked. A flicker of something passed between them. And when she turned to go inside, she left the door open. That night, Nathan sat on the cabin steps. Sophie's drawing rested in his hand. He looked at the little smiling faces. This place, he realized, had asked nothing of him, and yet it had given him peace. Maybe for the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing anything. He was just here. And from the farmhouse, a woman who always kept her guard up had, at last, left a door open. Not an invitation, but not a goodbye either. Night settled over the farm like a soft blanket. The world had quieted, just the faint rustling of grass in the breeze and the rhythmic hum of crickets filled the still air. The porch light cast a warm golden glow over the old wooden boards, flickering gently like a heartbeat. 3 chairs sat side by side. A small table between them held a teapot and 3 mismatched mugs. Steam curled from their rims, carrying the scent of fresh mint. Nathan sat on the left, sleeves rolled, legs stretched out, his cup resting loosely in his hands. Emily sat in the middle, upright, composed, but softer tonight. And Sophie, in her cotton nightdress, leaned sleepily against her sister's side, her small legs swinging just above the porch step. No one said anything, and yet everything felt said. Above them, the sky stretched wide and full of stars, not bright and showy, but subtle, like scattered wishes. Sophie looked up, blinking slowly. "Every star is a wish, right?" she whispered. Emily ran a hand gently through her sister's hair. "What would you wish for?" Nathan asked, his voice hushed. Sophie didn't hesitate. "I'd wish for Emily to stop worrying." Her answer was so simple, so sincere, that Nathan's heart clenched in his chest. He looked at her, this delicate child who spoke like someone who had seen too much. And then at Emily, still and quiet, but visibly moved. She didn't reply, but something shifted in her expression. She was listening, not just to the words, but to the silence between them. Sophie yawned, her small voice barely above a breath. "I'm going to bed now." Emily nodded. "Go ahead, honey." Nathan bent down slightly. "Thank you for the wish, Soph." The little girl grinned sleepily. "You should make one too." Then she slipped through the door, vanishing into the soft light of the house. Now there were 2. Silence fell again, but this time it felt natural, comfortable. Emily cradled her mug, the warmth soaking into her fingers. She didn't look at him when she spoke. "She trusts you. So fast." Nathan stared out at the yard, his voice low and steady. "She sees with her heart." The breeze picked up slightly, brushing a loose strand of hair across Emily's cheek. Nathan reached up instinctively to tuck it back, then paused. This time, she didn't pull away. His hand gently brushed the strand aside, lingering only for a moment near her face. A light touch. No words. But everything about it said, "I see you, and I'm not going anywhere." Their eyes met. No masks, no defenses. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. Nathan slowly pulled his hand back, offering a quiet smile. "You're strong, but no one should have to carry everything alone." Emily didn't speak. She simply picked up her mug again, but this time she shifted slightly, toward him, not away. Something inside Nathan cracked open, not in a breaking way, more like a long-closed window letting in light. He had come here to take, to win, to sign a contract. But now, what he wanted was to stay, not to claim, not to convince, but to protect something fragile. A woman who had fought too long on her own. A little girl who still believed in wishes. A home that had never asked for more than honesty. The stars above shimmered like promises half-whispered. And on that quiet porch, beneath a tin roof and flickering lamplight, two people sat in a silence that said more than words ever could. They had not held hands. They had not made vows. But in that stillness, they had reached for each other, not with their bodies, but with their hearts. The house was quiet that afternoon. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that settles before a storm. Emily stepped into the hallway, wiping her hands on her apron, when something on the table caught her eye. A stack of mail she hadn't noticed earlier. Half-opened envelopes, flyers from town, a few crumpled papers held together by a paperclip. She almost passed it. But then, one name leapt out. Montgomery Holdings. Her heart skipped. Her hand froze in midair. She reached for the top page, her fingers trembling slightly. A folded contract. Heavy paper. Sharp black ink. Offer to purchase Parker Farm. Signed, Nathan Montgomery. Her breath caught. The kitchen clock ticked once. Loud, and again. She could hear her pulse in her ears now. No, this couldn't be. But it was. And in that single second, the weight of every moment came crashing down. Every smile, every shared meal, every time Sophie had giggled and said, "He's like family." He wasn't Nathan Miller. He was the very man trying to take everything from them. The door creaked behind her. Footsteps on the porch. Nathan walked in from outside, dusty from the garden, unaware. He saw her standing there, papers in hand. And he stopped cold. Emily. His voice was quiet, unsure. But it was too late. She turned slowly, her face pale. Eyes, stone. Lips pressed so tight they'd lost all color. Her voice came out low, controlled, but shaking at the edges like a dam about to burst. "Is this why you came here? Was any of it real?" Nathan didn't answer. And that silence said everything. Emily took a step forward. Her fists clenched now. "I let you into my home. I let my sister call you family." Her voice cracked. She blinked fast, jaw tight, all while you sat here, pretending, watching us like a hunter watches prey. Nathan stepped forward, hands up, desperate. "Emily, listen, please." "No." Her word hit the room like thunder, short, final. She shook her head, eyes burning. "You watched me struggle, watched me work till my hands bled. You fixed fences, just so you could tear this place down more quietly." "That's not what I—" "Don't!" she snapped. Her voice wavered, just for a second, but then came back sharper. "You could have told me, but you didn't. You lied, every single day." She looked away. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. And then her voice broke, cracking in the middle like glass. "I let you near Sophie." She covered her mouth. Tears welled, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. Then a noise. Soft. Barely there, from the hallway, behind the curtain. Emily's eyes shifted, and she saw it. A small shadow, frozen, 2 bare feet just peeking out beneath the fabric. Sophie. She'd heard everything. Emily turned back to Nathan. Her voice dropped. Colder, final. "Leave, now." Nathan didn't move. He just stood there, like the wind had been knocked out of him. He opened his mouth, then closed it, There was nothing left to say. And Emily? She didn't want apologies. Not anymore. She turned her back to him, walked into the kitchen like the conversation was over. Because it was. Nathan stood there for a second longer. Then he left. The screen door creaked open, slammed shut, and his footsteps faded down the porch steps and into the dust. Behind the curtain, Sophie stood silent, her cheeks wet, her small hands clenched in the fabric. She didn't speak, didn't move. She just cried quietly, so no one would hear. But Emily heard, and it broke her heart even more, because this time it wasn't her pain that crushed her. It was the pain in Sophie's silence. The boardroom was cold, not from the air conditioning, but from the steel that lined every face inside. 12 men in dark suits, some older, some sharp-eyed, all impatient. A slideshow flickered on the wall behind them, sleek images of resort expansion plans, projected profits, cost breakdowns. The final slide, bold and centered, was the land parcel labeled Parker Property, Phase 2. And at the head of the table, Nathan Montgomery. But he wasn't leaning forward like he usually did. No confident posture, no quick smirk. Just silence, the kind that made men check their watches, shift in their seats. "Mr. Montgomery," one of the investors said, tapping his pen, "we're ready to proceed. Just a signature, and we're greenlit." Nathan didn't move. His eyes were locked on the file in front of him, an exact copy of the contract Emily had unknowingly found days earlier. The same offer, the same cold precision, and now, the final moment. Everyone in the room expected efficiency. Everyone in the room had seen Nathan dominate meetings like this, but not today. He stood, slowly, quietly. A few eyebrows lifted, murmurs exchanged, phones lowered. He picked up the contract, held it at eye level. Then, he ripped it straight down the middle. One motion, clean, relentless. The sound echoed in the dead silence of the room. And again. He tore it again, this time across. Then again, until nothing was left but fragments of paper scattered on the mahogany table. Gasps. Someone whispered, "He's lost it." But Nathan? He felt more clear than he had in years. "I won't sign this." His voice was calm, steady, but final. "We're not expanding onto that land." Silence. The man at his left leaned forward, voice sharp. "Nathan, that's a multi-million-dollar tract. You're throwing away years of planning, a partnership with global backers." Nathan turned to him, eyes unwavering. "I know exactly what I'm doing." He walked to the front of the room, to the glowing map of the farm on the screen. Pointed to it. "There's a child on this land," he said. "A sick little girl who calls that place home." He turned back. "I can't be the man who bulldozes her only safe haven. I won't be." The room fell into stunned quiet. Even the air seemed to still. "You'll be ruining your name in this industry," someone muttered from the far end. Nathan looked up, shoulders squared, then let it be ruined. And with that, he left the room. No further words, no apologies, no backward glances, just the soft crunch of torn contracts underfoot as he stepped over the pieces, and out the door. Down in the elevator, Nathan stared at his reflection in the polished metal walls. He didn't look like a CEO. He looked tired, bruised, raw, but under it all, something new had settled in. Peace, for the first time in years, maybe ever. He wasn't chasing more. He was finally walking toward something real. The sky was overcast the afternoon Nathan came back. Not stormy, just quietly gray, as if the clouds had agreed to hold their breath. The gravel road was the same, the gate still leaning slightly to the left. The trees, whispering softly as the wind passed through their branches. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. Nathan's truck rolled to a stop just before the fence. He didn't bring flowers, no gifts, no promises packaged in carefully chosen words, just himself. A man who had once come to take. Now, returning, only to give back. Emily was in the yard when she heard the engine. She turned slowly, wiping her hands on her jeans. Her posture tightened. Reflex, not thought. But when she saw who it was, she didn't move. Didn't run, didn't smile either. She just stood there, watching. Nathan stepped out of the truck. His shirt was plain. Dust still clung to his boots. No watch on his wrist, no briefcase in hand. He walked toward her, stopping a few feet away. Between them, silence. It stretched, long, brittle, but not hostile. Not anymore. Nathan looked at the farmhouse, then at the soil beneath their feet, and finally, at her. I came to return what never should have been touched. His voice was soft. No persuasion in it. No spin. Just a man choosing honesty over eloquence. This land, it belongs to you, and Sophie. A pause. I don't want it. I never should have. Emily didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. Nathan looked down for a moment, then back at her. I canceled everything. The expansion. The contracts. The project's dead. He shrugged gently, as if the weight had been heavy, and letting go had finally lightened him. I didn't come back to be forgiven. I'm not asking for that. A breeze passed through, stirring the leaves above them. Nathan's next words came slowly, like someone confessing in church, not expecting absolution, only needing to speak. I just wanted to see it whole, before I go. Emily blinked. Once, no tears, no trembling, but her arms, once crossed defensively over her chest, slowly fell to her sides. Her fingers opened, her gaze softened. No words, just the smallest change. And that meant more than a yes. Behind her, the screen door creaked. Sophie appeared on the porch, barefoot, holding the little stuffed bunny Nathan had once stitched the ear back onto. She didn't run to him, but she didn't hide either. She looked at him, studied him, then gave him the smallest nod. Nathan smiled, just faintly. No triumph, no relief, just a quiet kind of warmth. The kind that comes when someone finally lays their burdens down, not to be rewarded, but because it's the right thing to do. He turned to leave, slow and unhurried, but as he stepped back toward the truck, he heard her voice behind him. Soft, barely audible, but steady. You could stay for tea. He stopped. Didn't turn yet. Just tea, she added, like a line drawn in chalk. Not a door, not an invitation, but a window cracked open. Nathan turned slowly. Their eyes met again. Emily's weren't warm. Not yet. But they were no longer closed. And that was enough. The sun was high, but something felt off. In the garden, Sophie was twirling, a daisy crown slipping from her head, her laughter faint in the wind. Emily stood at the sink, rinsing fresh vegetables. She glanced out the window, smiling softly. Then it happened. Sudden. Sophie stopped. A small hand flew to her chest. And then she collapsed. Emily didn't think. She dropped the bowl. It shattered on the floor, water and carrots everywhere. But she was already out the door, bare feet hitting the dirt, heart racing. Sophie. No answer, just the sight of her sister lying on the grass. Still. Too still. Emily dropped to her knees, scooped Sophie into her arms. Sophie, look at me, baby, please look at me. The girl's face was pale. Her lips trembled, trying to form words. It hurts. Emily's world narrowed. Her breaths came fast, sharp, shallow. She didn't cry. Not yet. She ran. The truck roared down the dirt road. Wind screamed through the open windows. Dust spiraled behind her like smoke from a fire she couldn't put out. Sophie lay across the seat, wrapped in a blanket, her tiny chest rising, too slowly. Emily's knuckles were white on the wheel. Her foot slammed the gas. The road blurred. Her heart thundered in her ears. "Hold on. Please, hold on," she whispered. Over and over. Hospital parking lot. The brakes screamed. Emily jumped out, yanked open the passenger side, and gathered Sophie into her arms. "Help! I need help!" Doors burst open. Nurses ran out. A gurney appeared. Voices shouted. Emily didn't hear them. Not clearly. Just noise. Rushing, crashing, spiraling. Sophie was pulled from her arms. Then, she stood still. Just air. Empty arms. Cold sweat. "Ma'am, you need to wait here." A doctor said something. Gentle, calm. But she didn't process it. The hallway lights buzzed overhead. The floor tilted. Or maybe her knees buckled. And just when she thought the silence would crush her, a voice. Behind her. Emily. She turned. Nathan, breathless, shirt untucked, eyes wide with fear. "I heard. I came as fast as I could." Emily stared at him. Didn't ask how he knew. Didn't care. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her face twisted, and for the first time, she let herself fall, right into his arms. Nathan held her, tight, no words, her head pressed against his chest, his heart pounding just as fast as hers. "You're not alone," he whispered. "I'm here, I swear." Minutes passed, or hours. Time didn't matter. A doctor stepped into the hallway. Emily pulled away from Nathan. Her hands shook. "Your sister's stable," the doctor said. "She'll need stronger treatment from now on, but she's out of danger, for now." Emily closed her eyes. Air returned to her lungs. She nodded. "Can I see her?" "Briefly," the doctor replied. "She needs rest." Inside the room, Sophie lay still, eyes half open. Emily sat beside her, brushed her hair back, kissed her forehead. Nathan stayed in the doorway. He didn't enter. He didn't try to speak, but Sophie turned, saw him, and smiled. "You came," she whispered. Nathan's voice cracked. "Always." Outside, the world kept spinning, but inside that room, everything had slowed, and for the first time Emily didn't carry the weight alone. It was just past sunrise. The mist hadn't yet lifted from the fields, and the trees stood still, as if holding their breath. The kind of morning that arrives only after a storm. Gentle, slow, unsure. Emily stood on the porch in her cardigan, holding a chipped mug of tea. Her eyes were puffy from 2 sleepless nights, but clear. Watching. In the distance, a soft hum grew louder. A vehicle, not a truck, not farm equipment. Something unfamiliar. Then she saw it. A white medical trailer turning slowly onto the gravel path. Sleek, clean. Its paint glistened under the soft gold light of dawn. On the side, a blue emblem, a heart encircling a stethoscope. It stopped just outside the gate. Emily stepped down from the porch, her steps hesitant, heart thudding, slow but deep. The door opened. Nathan stepped out. He wore no suit, no polished smile, just a plain shirt, sleeves rolled, and eyes full of quiet intention. Behind him, the door of the trailer opened wider, revealing not just supplies, but something close to grace. Inside, a child-size medical bed, monitoring equipment, portable oxygen, a cooler for meds that needed refrigeration, everything Sophie would need, and nothing Emily ever thought she could have. She stood still, arms crossed, not from defensiveness, but because her hands had begun to shake. Nathan walked toward her, stopped just far enough to give her space, but close enough that she could feel the sincerity radiating off him like warmth. He looked at the trailer, then at her. "It's yours," he said. "For Sophie. For as long as she needs it." Emily's lips parted, but no words came. Her throat was too tight. Her eyes filled before she realized it. She turned her head slightly, trying to regain composure, but the tears came anyway. She looked back at him. Why would you do this? Nathan's voice was low. Even. No dramatics, because I needed you to know. I'm not here to take any more. A pause. He stepped closer, still careful. I'm not asking you to forgive me today. Or tomorrow. He looked down at the ground, then back up. But if you'll let me, I want to start again. Not with promises, not with speeches, but with small things. He motioned towards the trailer. Like this. Then added, almost a whisper, every day, as long as it takes. Emily's hands finally dropped from her chest. She stepped forward. Not toward the trailer, not toward the equipment, but toward him. Her voice, when it came, was trembling and quiet. Do you mean it? He nodded. Not once. Not twice, but slowly, like each movement carried weight. She looked at him. Truly looked, at the lines near his eyes that hadn't been there before, at the weariness in his posture, and the hope he tried, carefully, not to let show too brightly. Then she reached out, just barely. Her fingertips brushed the back of his hand. Then stay. A single tear slid down her cheek. Just stay. Behind them, Sophie stood at the doorway, wrapped in a blanket, holding the bunny he'd once fixed for her. She didn't say anything. She just watched. And smiled. It was just before dusk when Nathan led Emily by the hand, through the path lined with freshly bloomed wildflowers and soft summer grass. The air smelled of honeysuckle and old wood, of something that had taken root long ago, and never quite left. The barn stood quietly at the edge of the pasture, simple, weathered, familiar. Inside, the soft glow of string lights hung from the rafters, casting warm golden halos across beams and hay. They didn't flicker. They just glowed, like something patient and steady, like hope that had taken its time. Emily stopped at the threshold. Why are we in the barn? She asked, a small smile pulling at the corner of her lips. Nathan didn't answer right away. He simply stepped inside, then turned back and offered her his hand. She took it, and when she stepped through the doors, she saw it. Not flowers, not fancy decorations, just a small circle of clean hay, a folded quilt spread over it, and in the middle, a small box, waiting silently. Nathan turned to face her. This is where Sophie used to sneak out to feed the old horse, right? Emily nodded, caught between amusement and confusion. She called him Duke, she whispered, even though he barely moved. It was the first place she told me she trusted me, Nathan said softly. So I figured, and then he knelt, not with a speech, not with bravado, just a quiet breath, a nervous laugh, and a ring in his hand. I used to think I had everything, he said, voice low, honest. But it turns out, everything started the moment I met you. Emily stood still. No gasp. No tears yet. Just her hands, pressed gently over her chest, like she was holding something fragile from breaking inside her. Nathan didn't rush. He didn't push. You and Sophie. This farm. This life, he added, almost stumbling on the last word. I never knew I needed it, but now I can't imagine anything else. So, will you marry me? Behind the stable wall, Sophie peeked out, her little head barely visible above a bale of hay. She clutched her bunny to her chest, eyes wide and twinkling. Then she whispered, just for herself. I knew it. Emily finally moved. She stepped forward, one slow step, then another, and knelt too. Not to reach for the ring, but to reach for him. Her hand found his face. She cupped his cheek gently. I'm already home, she said. So yes. And then, finally, she smiled, the kind that had no words behind it, only the weight of everything they'd survived to get here. Nathan slid the ring on her finger, his hands shaking just a little. They didn't kiss immediately. They just leaned into each other, foreheads touching, eyes closed, like the moment itself was enough. Above them, the lights swayed gently. Outside, a breeze moved through the field, and fireflies began to flicker. And behind the bales, Sophie tiptoed away, holding her bunny tight, trying not to squeal. But she whispered to herself again, "It's going to be the best wedding ever." They married on the same patch of land where Sophie once collapsed. Now, under a simple white arch Nathan built with his own hands, the place stood for something new. Healing. Emily wore a linen dress she made herself. Sophie, barefoot and beaming, tossed petals in the air, shouting, "Hooray for the bride and groom!" There were no grand speeches, just hands held, vows exchanged in quiet voices, promises made with steady eyes. Later, as the sun slipped behind the hills, the three of them sat on the porch. Sophie lay between them, asleep beneath a blanket. Nathan looked out across the land, the place he once tried to claim. Now he was just grateful to belong. He turned to Emily. "I used to think you had to fight to keep what mattered," he said softly. "But some things only stay, when you stop trying to take them." Emily took his hand. No reply. Just silence, the kind that said everything. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. How would you rate it, from 1 to 10? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice truly matters here. And if you believe in the power of quiet, honest stories like this one, subscribe to our channel. We share heartfelt stories that heal, inspire, and remind us of what truly matters. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss a moment that might just change your day or your life.